outside the CAB workshop. We're going to start today's session with the session Keynote with Joel Van Rensburg. He's the president of alternative fuels at ACT Energy Systems, which is a leading supplier of complete refueling stations for CNG, RNG, and hydrogen. Joel joined ACT in 2013. He's a dynamic leader, and he has led the business through a period of rapid expansion. Combining his strong engineering and commercial backgrounds, he has led the diversification of ACT's product portfolio internationally, most recently driving its expansion into the hydrogen refueling segment in 2021. So please help me in welcoming Joel.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining me here today. So, as you said, my name is Joel Van Rensburg. I'm part of a bigger business called Vontier, and I'll get into it a little bit more as I jump into it over here. But the future is extremely bright for alternate fuels, and we truly believe it's a multi-energy solution. I want to talk a little bit about how to navigate that as you embark on your journeys as well. So Vontier is a company focused on mobility technologies. And under Vontier, there are three main core segments to our business. I'm going to talk more about the alternate fuels and the sustainable fleet segment. So inside that segment, we're made up of a series of businesses that focus on infrastructure build-out. And that's infrastructure for CNG, RNG, hydrogen, EV, and then also our traditional fuels, and then our biofuels businesses as well. We have fleet operations solutions as well, around with Teletrac Navman, focused in on vehicle telemetry, and then energy management systems with Sparkion, about how we control energy on grid management side, and then backlog software applications with our Drives platform too. Vontier is made up of over 8,000 employees globally. So we have a pretty large customer base that gives us a lot of access to what's really happening in the space. So I'd start a little bit with some of the challenges our customers face, and we break them down into three key sectors. Fleet operations challenges, infrastructure challenges, and energy management challenges. Our customer base is pretty diverse. So if we look at across the entire Vontier umbrella, we work with large fleets that do cross-country applications, a lot of home-run-based fleets. We work with municipalities, transit agencies, and then we also work with the station owner and operators as well, helping them out with infrastructure build-out. So as we speak to these customers, and I start off with the fleet operations challenges, one of the key challenges that they are faced with today is what fuel to transition to. So how do they know what fuel they should select? Is it EV? Is it hydrogen? Is it CNG? Is it RNG? What makes it easier for them to understand that? The other big complexity around it is how do you minimize disruption to my logistics? So you start thinking about transitioning from a diesel fuel to an EV. You've got charge time you have to take into consideration, you've got range to take into consideration, and some of that can be pretty disrupting for some of our customers. As you start looking to the infrastructure side, the availability of infrastructure is top of mind to some of our customers. And then not just the availability of it, but the reliability of it too. So the big thing for a lot of them to start figuring out is what's the right ownership model here? Should they own their own stations and operate them? Or should they partner with somebody who can build out the infrastructure and work together with them around their routes and how they operate? And then it's pretty complex as you look at the entire landscape of the US. There's regulations and different incentives across the country that make it tough for them to try and understand where to go. And then the last one here, energy management challenges, is where is my energy going to come from? So if it's hydrogen, where do I get my supply from? CNG, RNG, where can I get access to that, and how do I know how to access that? But then beyond that piece of it, what's the future of that supply look like? And do I have accessibility to it? So some of the big key things that our customers face as they start looking to their whole road to decarbonization and where to focus. So I'll talk to you a little bit about this in how to solve this. We break it down into a 5-step process. An identification phase, a planning phase, a testing phase, implementation phase, and then how do you sustain it and reiterate. On the identification phase, one of the key pieces here is to make sure you form a good consortium around partnerships as to what does your current logistical operation look like? Is it already optimized as it is? Do you need to do some optimization around it? And then not only that, but what is happening on the regulation side? What are the regulatory drivers, incentives behind it? So start understanding what that landscape looks like for now, and then in the future as you start scaling your operations. As we jump into the planning phase, one of the big things is what's the right mix of fuel for me? You've got a big array of fuels that can play out here depending on how you're operating your fleets. And one of the big things here to focus on is where you get your information from. Make sure you're making data-driven decisions as you approach your fleets and understanding. So how are you leveraging your telematics data that's coming back from your vehicles to make informed decisions around duty cycle times, run times, and so forth. So it's extremely important to start understanding what your cost per vehicle model looks like today. And as you embark on your journey, whether it's an EV journey, a hydrogen journey, a multi-energy journey, what that cost of ownership per vehicle will look like in the future. And then upon that is when you start iterating. The other big one that's critical is what do you want to do about ownership of infrastructure? Do you want to own and operate your own infrastructure? That needs to get taken into your total cost of ownership model too? Or are you going to partner with somebody else who can provide you a fuel solution and so forth? So making sure that you've got a good solid plan around what your short-term vision looks like for this, and then how do you iterate it as you grow. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the implementation phase, and I'll use an example here. Take a slow phased approach as you do this. How do you get into the space, start testing out some cases, and then iterate from that? The example I use here is very similar to a model that you'll see in like an Amazon or Walmart, where they've started with, in this example, a hydrogen conversion of their forklifts. The next phase is, as they start scaling those operations, you can start looking at their yard trucks, then their home run, outward bound fleet operations, and then their cross-country operations too. So make sure that as you embark on your journey, you've got a solution provider that can help you scale, and they can scale with you. So that's going to be the most important piece here as you look at it. The other big one is how do you minimize disruption? There's some challenges today in the industry with uptime and some of these alternate fuel solutions. So making sure that you've got some redundancy in place as you scale and as you get started on your journey. And then the big one is how do you minimize cost up front and then scale your operation as you go. So making sure that, like I said, your suppliers or your partners that you're working with have the capability to scale. And then as you start looking at fuel sources, how do you get connected with the right elements to get you the right fuel sources that you need? And then test your ROI. One of the big pieces that you're going to need here is you're going to need data. So as you partner with companies, one of your bigger and most important pieces is how can you pull all your information together to do a good total cost of ownership calculation. So if you've got a hydrogen solution on your station set, you've got a CNG solution, and even EV charging infrastructure, how do you get that back to a per vehicle cost model to understand what your operations are running at? And is it efficient or not? There's a lot you can do with telematics data too. So how do you extrapolate driver behavior and range of routes? And what's coming back from that data, and how do you build that into your next views of what are the next vehicles that you go off? So a lot to do with the consolidation of your data. One of the other big ones that you're going to need as you start consolidating data is how do you take that data and do your ESG reporting on the back end of it? It's going to be pretty critical as you embark on this journey. So making sure that you can do your total cost of ownership calculations, your return on investment models, and then iterate from there as you embark. So the big piece here, just to put it into summary, but start in phases. Start small, iterate as you go. Make sure you're making data-driven decisions, so leverage your telematics data, and then start scaling those operations as you go. Make sure you've got redundancy in place as you build out your model and start building from there. And then harness your software capabilities to feed back information to you on your return on investment per vehicle model. And then from there, it's continue to iterate and grow and expand as you learn as well. Okay. So I'd love to have further conversations with anybody. We do have a booth here at the show under the Volunteer umbrella. We're at 1830. We've got all our businesses here showcasing that capability. And I'd like to have that discussion further with anybody around decarbonizing the future for you. So thank you very much.